Greetings. Today we'd like to talk to you about the phrase defense is the first act of war. Now, this can be a phrase that some people have a hard time wrapping their head around. And what we would like to say today about this phrase is anytime you defend, you add to the energy of war, or the energy of hate, or the energy of fear. And that's all you have as humans is energy. There is nothing but energy. That is who you are. That is what you are. When you look into the truth of everything, what you defend, you add to that feeling of what you perceive as someone attacking something. So, we were talking earlier about the fact that the channel here relates very much and feels very defensive of the unhoused. She looks at the unhoused as people that she can imagine being part of. She looks at them that the thing that they need is just their basic necessities. And then she looks at the billionaires of the world, the richest people in the world, and cannot relate, and looks at them and says, you are not being kind to the unhoused and the people too, not necessarily all the way in the spectrum of billionaires. She looks at and thinks, hmm, she hears people talking about the unhoused in unfavorable ways and blaming them for all the ills of the world. And she's looking over there saying, hi, it is the billionaires, the trillionaires, the zillionaires of the world that are the problem, not the unhoused, because actually they could take a small amount of what they have and take care of the unhoused and have their basic needs met. And there would be no issues and everything would be fine. However, that defense, that fighting against, she again is aligning to this and she is adding to that vision of fear, of lack. And then she doesn't see the fact that she could be on that other side just as easily as she could be on the richest people in the world side, just as easily as the poorest people in the world side. There is no difference. She sees their lack, what the things they need is so basic, so easy, and she sees that other side as great. And part of the reason she sees that is her upbringing, her cultural teachings that she was taught as a child, and the things that you attribute, we would say, get rid of labels. No longer using the term God, using the term source, using the term infinite. Because when we put God, we have images. Whether you're white, whether you're a person of color, you're going to see, because you were created in the image and likeness of God. So you are going to attribute things that are not actually infinite and source and powerful to the thing that is, and you're going to flaw God, our source. So we will drop God, not because we have anything wrong with God per se, or any religion, or wish to offend. And the same thing with Jesus. It's an energy. It's something that is an idea. However, when you put a Middle Eastern man and turn him into an Anglo Saxon man, there are problems with that. And maybe Jesus wasn't a man, maybe Jesus was a woman. However, there would be different things going on. And again, these are ideas. The Holy Spirit, same thing. There's no difference between source, or as you term God, angels, Holy Spirit, Jesus the Christ, and you, because you are individuations of source. And again, as we were saying, that defense is the first act of war, meaning when you put up your sword to defend what you think you are part of, what you think that the people who need your defense, you are just putting out energy, and all you are is energy. You are putting out energy of fear, because when you need to defend somebody, you fear what the others might do. And there are no others. Individuation is not separation. Individuation is connection, interconnected. You are all interdependent because you are all one. One day, when you cast off your physical bodies, which are only tools for you to use, you create what is going on in your physical body. Science has proven this. People have cured themselves from diseases by strictly changing their thoughts, and your thoughts are energy. So when you go to defend somebody, you are sending out that energy of fear. You are sending out that energy of hate. You cannot defend. You cannot raise your sword in defense without being fearful. People who fight in wars are scared. People would not fight if they were not scared. And this is why people in the military go to boot camp. They have to be trained. This is why they are spend so much time in a certain mindset, so they can look at those others with fear. Now they are being told they are brave, they are strong, and at the same time, they're teaching them fear, because there's either love or there's not love. And you can go on a spectrum, it's on a spectrum, just like light and heat, there's a spectrum. There's no such thing as cold, there's no such thing as dark. There's either heat or less heat. There's either love or less love. There's either light or less light. That's what we have here. So you're either loving or you're fear or hate. And again, it's just a movement on the spectrum. So when you go to defend the people who you think are more vulnerable against people who you think are more powerful, again, you are only adding to that negativity. Now, this is not to say don't act, because there's all these memes going on in the world about this is just what the Germans did during the Holocaust type of memes going around. No, this is not what the Germans did during the Holocaust. If you turn inward, and inward is the only place you can make a difference. If you would turn inward and ignore the news, ignore the social media, it's not social, it's anti social media. If you would ignore this, turn inward, clean up what's inside of you, clean up those things that say, I cannot be, because again, she is looking at, I can only go down from here. I can only be part of this group. I cannot, in her mind, she's saying she cannot be part of the rich and the elite. So she goes to war with them, not necessarily to protect And again, because there is no protection needed, because you are all one. You are all one. So there is no need. You are just adding to the negativity. You are adding to the fear. So you could, if you would go inward, remove all these labels, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. And again, this is not blasphemous. It's blasphemous to separate. That is the only blasphemy, is separation. Saying, this is not my brother or sister. These are my brothers and sisters. That is blasphemous. I can't possibly be that. When your Jesus the Christ said, all these things I can do and more, what aren't you getting about this? That is the only thing wrong. So when we go inward and go to that true place and we pluck those weeds, dig down deep, root them out of you, then we can change the world. The world will automatically change because this is the thing. Once you root those things out, you will not see those people or those people. You won't see one side or the other. You will just know peace. You will finally know that peace that passes all understanding. This is the only way to quote unquote save the world. Things will spiral out of control until you turn inward. It is not being spiritually bypassing to turn inward because again you cannot change anybody's mind, and when you defend one person, again you are going to war with the other person. So when someone makes a comment, a statement about wokeness, for instance, and that sets you off, because when someone says woke, you have this in your mindset that the way they say it is a negative thing. So you turn and defend and you go to sleep. You are no actually longer woke. When you go to defend anything, you are actually going to sleep. So you are not indeed woke. So don't worry about that being something spit at you. You are not woke. You have lost your wokeness once that occurs. But to understand deeply that anytime you argue with somebody, even in the defense of others, all you're doing is adding to that negative. And all you're doing is separating. That person is wrong. And especially, for instance, we are using, because of the channel that we are coming through, we are using examples of things that get her. So, for instance, the unhoused situations and the unkind remarks that she feels are being said about them. When she remembers that, when she remembers those unkind remarks, and then she thinks that person is just so mean and so uncaring and so awful, that she now again has put them out of and put them into a bad place. That's going to war with this person. And then she wants peace. She preaches peace all the time. Go on her, you know, Instagram and peace, kindness. But inside of herself, when she says, well, that person, in her mind, when she goes at that person in her mind, she's going to war. She's doing the exact thing she's upset with them for doing. When she looks at people like the billionaires who are currently controlling the United States, and in her mind, making very unkind, very thoughtless choices, she is doing to them what she thinks that they are doing to others. And if she could turn inward, pluck out, root out all these things from her childhood, from her roles she has played. For instance, she's a big sister. She's the oldest of her family of origin here on the planet. And so she has that big sister energy, that fierce protecting, kind of like mother bear energy. When somebody who she thinks of as someone in need of care, the little guy, the downtrodden, she is always sided with the underdog. And in her mind, she thought it's always right to protect the vulnerable and the innocent. She's a vegan, for instance. And so in her mind, she thinks that is the good thing, that's the right thing. However, it really depends on how you do it. You can love, you can care for people without arguing with these other people. You go do it. You take care of people, but don't argue with anybody. There's no reason to argue with anybody. There's no reason to make a stand to anybody. You don't need to stand up. Again, she thinks about her little sister who is transgendered. And she thinks, well, I should say stuff, I should boycott, I should do this, otherwise I'm not being helpful. No, if she thinks her little sister needs something, she should go attend to her little sister's needs rather than arguing online with people who, which she doesn't anymore, but arguing online or boycotting or sending out negative energy, attend to her sister's needs. That's what we need to do. You can do that. But if you take up a sword and you defend somebody, that isn't helpful. Yes, vote when it's time to vote. Vote for candidates who aren't being what she would deem as mean or horrible to vulnerable classes of what you designate as vulnerable classes of people. That's something you can do. So go inward. And while you're inward and you're thinking, what can I do to help without contributing to the fear, the hate, the vitriol that is all you're seeming to see? How can you be love and how can you be light? Thoughts and prayers, even though it's been used on the wrong thing, are actually the only thing that you can contribute in the energetic way. What you think about, how you think about things can change the whole world. So it's an internal job, it's not an external job. And again, this is not to say don't do anything. You cannot do something well if you are coming from a place of fear, hate, anything but love, anything but center, anything but your source place inside of you is going to be a reaction, not an action. We don't need to react, we need to act. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes all we need to do is clean up the inside. Find those places why you feel like you need to defend somebody, why you feel like instead of actually going and doing something, arguing with somebody, trying to change somebody's mind isn't doing anything. Going and helping is doing something. Helping with a clear, clean heart is doing something. Arguing with somebody, trying to change their mind, shouting, as we have seen recently, protesting doesn't work, especially when we understand your feelings about your current president, but yelling obscenities towards him, chanting in unison, is not going to help the situation because you are just contributing to those things that you don't like. It doesn't hurt his feelings And it actually helps him and energizes him when you say, derogatory things towards him and you all chant that. You are all chanting the people in Washington, D.C., who were at a march and at a rally chanting, fuck somebody, is not loving. And that's only building more energy towards that somebody. It doesn't matter if you're shouting love or hate at somebody, it's still shouting. And it's still just building that energy instead of getting centered, getting to your source place inside of you because you all are source. Get to that place inside of you. Do something from there. And really, the only thing you really need to do is prepare your garden. Pull out those weeds. Make that good, healthy soil so you can plant those seeds and you can create love and nurturing and nurturance and nourishment for source, for the world to change. Because you are all like little kids who want cool looking frames on their glasses and you aren't paying attention to your lenses. Your lenses could be scratched, but hey, those frames are really super awesome. It's not super helpful because you are not seeing clearly. And you need to see clearly. You need to clear up those things that says, I'm different from this person. You are not different from any person. Again, there's only love or moving away from love. If all of you on the planet could wake up, it only takes one of you to truly wake up, stay awake, and remember who you are and who everyone else is, that would change the world. So go into that garden inside of you, that source inside of you, and pluck out those things. Pluck out those things, for instance, that say you cannot be the richest person in the world. Why do most of you who do defend the homeless or the unhoused and the downtrodden and the people in need, and we're in parentheses there, in need, you relate more to that than you do the wealthiest people in the world? If you are created from source, you have just as much ability to be the wealthiest person in the world as you do to be an unhoused person. There is no difference except for the things you were taught, the things that you were told. If you look at some of the wealthiest people in the world, there are some people who did do it themselves, bootstrap themselves. But for the most part, and for the most part, they were given. For instance, the wealthiest man in the world came from money, did not create anything new. The things that he is known for, he did not create any of those things. He had the money and the ability to buy those things. Yes, there's genius and knowing whose products are great and knowing what to buy, what patents to buy, what things to control. Because again, you are all source. So it all belongs to everyone. There's nothing that you have that doesn't belong to everybody else. There's nothing that you've thought that hasn't been thought by anybody else. Everything that you're learning, and again, in quotations, you already know. You're just remembering. So when you can get rid of those limiting thoughts, when you go inside and you can think, where have I been programmed to think I'm more likely to be unhoused than I am to be the richest person in the world? That's nonsense. You are just as likely to be one or the other, and it may not feel like that. However, If you can remember you are source and everyone else is source, all these limitations, all these labels are useless. Go inside. That's where the real change is. Then you don't have to defend. You don't have to fight anything. You don't have to resist stuff. Protest means to protest. You are protesting. That means that where is love in that word? Where is love in that action? You can march. March doesn't sound bad. I mean, yes, they use it in the military, but marching isn't bad. You can join a movement. That's great. And be careful with your words. Remember, when you say I am, you are putting that to reality. The world around you that you see, you created. You are part of creating that. Now, you didn't do it alone. You all have gone to school or gone to maybe church and have had parents or somebody raise you that has taught you what these words mean. So be careful with your words. Not be careful in fear or worry, but choose wisely. Choose wisdom. Wisdom will guide you. Know that you are part of Source and Source can guide you. That's all you are here for, is to express Source. All you are here for is to experience this game of life. It is like a video game. It is like a simulation, as some people have called it. And your job here is to experience joy. Experience it. You need to, again, turn inward, remove, and it will take a while, and you'll forget, and then you'll remember, and you'll forget, and you'll remember. That's the whole purpose. When you are finished, you can cast off this tool that is your body and move back into Source or some other adventure. That's it. That's that simple. Simple, though, is not always easy, but it can be, and it can be. And that is all. Be well.